Hello everyone, welcome to the tutorial for the All Vehicles add-on for Infector's Character Controller. First thing we're going to do in this tutorial is set up our template that we're going to use for our car. So if you go into the Vehicles add-on folder in the core files under Models and Cars and Trucks, Models, down at the bottom you'll find a folder called X Templates. In here are a bunch of prefabs you can use to quick set up your car. There might be more than what you see in the screenshot, but for now I'm going to grab the car template rename and drag it into my scene. I'm going to set its position to 0, 0, 0. This just makes it easier for me to work with in the editor. You might have your own preferences or setups, but for me, I'm just going to set it to 0, 0, 0 for the sake of this tutorial. The next thing I really need is the actual model for the vehicle. So what I'm going to use here is the ambulance model that is already going to be included in the package, but for this tutorial, I will show you how I set this one up. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the model and just drag it into my scene. Once I do that, I'm also going to make sure that the position is set to 0, 0, 0, so again, it's easier to work with. Right away, I can tell that the rotation's off, so I'm going to have to rotate the Y rotation, probably 180 degrees, so I can either do that with the handles or I can just type it in. So 180, and it looks like it's all set. Once again, make sure the X and Z and Y is at 0. So right away I can tell that the wheels are not quite aligned. So in order to adjust the wheels, I want to make sure that I'm grabbing both the wheel mesh and the wheel collider. It's very important because they're both used and you don't really want to have them off from each other. So here I'm going to be grabbing the back wheels, so both the back left and back right wheel mesh and the back left and back right wheel collider. Here I'm just adjusting the position so it looks like it's more in sync with the vehicle shape. Check the front. That looks pretty good, so I can just leave it at that. First thing I noticed though too is the position on the side of the vehicle is way off. So I'm just going to grab the right hand side here and pull them all out, making sure I'm grabbing both the wheel mesh and the wheel collider. Once I adjust the back wheel here, I probably could have just grabbed the back wheels, but it looks like I grabbed both of them here. So yeah, I'm just going to adjust it. I'm not going to be perfect right now. I'm just kind of getting it quickly set up. And here I'm just going to deselect everything and then reselect the front wheel collider and mesh and adjust that. I'm also going to have to do that for the other side. Now, if I don't have them really lined up perfectly well, my car might veer to the left or veer to the right when I'm testing it. So when you're doing this, you kind of want to make sure they are almost perfectly at center value. So if one's at 0.23, the other one's going to be at negative 0.23. And once we're done, we want to make sure we drag that model of our vehicle into the model folder of our car templates. That's very important because the model empty game object, where the car model is now a template of, or a child of, handles everything else. We can also adjust the colliders here. There's a folder inside that templates for colliders for all different parts of colliders. The front of the car, or the bottom of the car. You can delete the ones you don't need, but you need at least one collider to kind of designate where your vehicle is. So here I'm just adjusting all the different parts, the windows, the back, the front. And again, this is more for the, not the control of the car, but when it hits objects. So sometimes boxes don't work, and I don't want to overrun the engine with the mesh collider of the actual vehicle, because there might be tons of different meshes in this piece or whatever model you're using. So I'm just using generic boxes to kind of get the general shape of what I'm doing. So you can see here I'm just adjusting everything right now. I should be short to being done. I'm just going to go on the other side here and get the last collider. And once I'm done with the collider, what I'm going to do is grab the entire collider's box or empty game object and drag that again into the model folder in the car templates rename. The reason I'm doing that is so that the collider also moves with the model as the chassis leans left and right as I'm setting that up for driving. But we'll get that to a little bit later. Next thing we need to do is obviously set up our particle effects. We basically do this the same way we did our colliders. We just grab them all, the exhaust colliders, and adjust their XYZ coordinates to just kind of fit my car. Again, I'm not doing this perfect. I don't even think I even have exhaust models on this vehicle here. But for now, I'm just going to kind of get it set up so it looks about right. Again, you can use your own effects if you want to, but these are already preset, so you don't have to really do anything. Once again, like I said, it's a quick prefab. Do the same thing with the Nitro Flames. Here, I'm just adjusting the positions of them. I could also change the color and change the effects if I wanted to, or add my own. But for right now, I'm just, like I said, just generally adjusting everything. So it looks like everything there is all set. So let's now get into the actual car system. As you can see, the V car control script is what I need. And the most important part is to make sure that the player is defined. So I'm going to grab the player character I'm using and put it into the field. You might have a different way of doing this. You might want to use a script, but for this purpose and for the template itself, I'm just having you drag and drop. You can also set your car camera state. Each car is going to have, large, huge, or medium. The default is small, which is unchecked. You can also set up your car controller here. This is just to set up different buttons or keys for your vehicle. And your armor system. Your mass armor is basically your health. Think of it that way. So you can adjust it here. You can also use what I have is the use color. What that'll do is use the 3 different colors that you see below there to designate when your car is getting to that part of health. Middle health is orange, lower health is red. You can uncheck it if you don't want to use it. The paint system, this is an optional feature. If you don't want to use this, you can just set that size to 0. But if you do want to use it, what you have to do is find out all the parts of your vehicle that you would want to be colored. Obviously, you don't want the wheels colored or other parts of it. So what you got to really do is kind of know ahead of time what parts of the model you need defined. Figure out how many there are, put it into this field. So as you can see, I'm kind of clicking around here. It looks like I need to get both rear doors, the cab, the main, and the front door. So that turns out to be 5. So I'm just going to open 5 here in the array and grab all the model pieces and drag them in here. That's all I really need to do for the paint system. Another nice feature to do is to actually have your car white in the beginning as a prefab, so the colors don't really mess up too much. But again, personal preference and whether or not you want to use this. The second thing we're going to do here is the door system. Now I'm going to go into detail here on how to set up a hinge joint, just because I'm not sure a lot of people don't even know how to use hinges. So for this instance, what I need to do is obviously select the door that I want to have open and close, and it has to be a separate model piece. Some cars might not even have that, and in which case you wouldn't even use this. And I'm going to add a hinge joint. When I add the hinge joint, what's going to happen is it's immediately going to add a rigid body, and we don't really need to change the rigid body at all. But an important thing is to make sure that the connected body is set to the actual model of the ambulance. So we can just set the actual whole game object of the car template as the body. So when we select the door, what's going to happen is you're going to see this little orange pivot point. It's kind of hard to see at this point. I usually turn my scene mode into wireframe so it's easier to see. But you see at the bottom by the wheel, there's this orange pivot point. And what that is the arrow pointing up means that it's going to rotate along that axis. So I want to make sure that my arrow is always pointing straight up in a straight line. And you're going to have to set your axis to do that. Mine is an axis of C for 1, but yours might be X. The next thing to do is set the actual anchor, and the anchor is where the door is going to hinge at. So what we want to do is actually set it to where an actual door hinge would be. Now, most doors have 2 hinges. We're not going to go through all that, so we're just using 1. So we're going to put it right in the middle of the door, but we want it right on the edge. And you can see after some time I found out exactly right where it is, and it takes some fiddling to get to, but once it's done, you go back into the car system and again make sure that the door is selected. There is a check mark there for low doors, and what that basically does is it triggers one of 2 animations. If you have low doors checked, you will get down into a vehicle. If you have it unchecked, you will step up into a vehicle. The difference between going down to a low car or like getting into a truck. So now we want to get into the chassis system. This is already preset because the model is already selected, so you really wouldn't have to do anything except set your vertical and horizontal leaning. If you didn't want any leaning, you could just set it to 0 and it won't lean at all. But this is basically the moving of the vehicle. As you turn left or right in hard corners, your car will lean left and right, give it more realism. Next thing you want to do is the damage system, which is quick and painless. Set a prefab and set your audio. Same thing for the motor system. Quick audio clips for starting the engine and turning off the engine. The exhaust we already did. They're already preset, but this is where you would put your own prefabs if you wanted them. Same thing with the nitro, we already have those set, but this is where you would set the nitro value, how much boost you would actually have, and what kind of sound you would like when the nitro is triggered. Fuel option, do you want infinite fuel, not infinite fuel, and how much does it consume while it's driving? Okay, so now going to the lighting system, we have it's already, again, preset, so you shouldn't have to do anything except actually adjust positions, which we're going to do now. But you could put your own lighting system in here if you wanted to, but again, this is just a one quick setup template, and it's not meant for real big details. It's just meant to get your car in there and start working pretty much the way it is. So you can see here I'm just grabbing the whole light game object and then individually grabbing the left flares and left headlights. Now the flare is the actual light that you'll see. and the headlight itself is the actual light that illuminates. So you kind of want both of them to give the illusion of a headlight being on. Otherwise, you won't actually see a light being turned on. You'll just see the illumination of the areas around it. So again, here I am doing it to the back. And once I'm all done with adjusting them, I am all set. I can go into the audio components. Now these are already preset, so again, I don't have to do anything. But if I want to individually adjust different sound values, or 2D or 3D, I could just go into the audio component itself and adjust them here. So let's go ahead and test it out now. Like I said, I just quickly threw this together. I didn't have to do much for anything except for maybe the door. And you can see I'm getting into the car. Now my position's off, but I'll go into another video explaining how to fix that. Right now I got into the vehicle. It seems everything's good. I'm going to start driving here. Everything seems to be going okay. My chassis lean is working. Brake lights seem to be working. Let me turn the lights on here. Yep, okay, so the lights are on. They could be adjusted a little bit better, but for right now I can see that it's working. Let me try turbo. Yep, turbo is working. All right, so that's all set. Next thing I'm going to do is let's try some damage, see what happens there. My brake lights or not my brakes, but my skid marks are working. Leaning is definitely happening. I'm going to hit something. Okay, that looks like I'm getting the prefabs of the damage and the sound, although you can't hear it. So everything's working exactly how I want it to work. Like I said, I can fine-tune the car, but I could create a prefab of this right now and it would be ready to go. So I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. I hope it helped you get your own models and cars into your game. And if you have any questions, please visit the Invector forums under the Vehicles Car add-on under J. Giroux, and you can ask me questions there. All right, thanks. Thumbs up if you like this video and you'd like to see more of them.